Ah, yes. Wednesday edition of Schein Time. Shohei Ohtani continues to do things on the baseball diamond we've never seen before. Begging Babe Ruth. Max Fried, Giancarlo Stanton, and the Yankees continue to dominate and inspire. Luke and the Lakers on fire. The Knicks are nuts. Schein Time starts right now.
Don't stop. Keep it coming, baby. Don't stop.
Being a baseball fan, you know what it means, or you just know the standard that the Yankees hold, and putting on the pinstripes is a certain responsibility and expectation that comes with that.
If you're a Yankee fan, you gotta love sports. Doesn't get any better than that. Are you kidding me? And listen, it's always great to start the season for your favorite baseball team off to a good start. I mean, sure as hell beats the alternative. No team says, it's okay if you don't have a good start. But for the Yankees, after Brian Cashman had that quiet offseason, the New York Yankees, my New York Yankees, your New York Yankees, our New York Yankees needed a hot start. This is piping hot, sizzling, blazing hot. And the way the Yankees are winning, I am just fired up. It's inspiring. You take a look at Max Fried's Super Max, back page of the New York Post. You betcha. I can't get enough. 7 dominant innings, scattered 3 hits, hasn't given up a run to start the season. And he's been facing the Giants and the Mariners, and these are teams that can flat out hit. 2 teams that I picked to go to the playoffs before the season started. And in terms of the Mariners, last night, I always like to frame it as a wheel stop spinning kind of game and series in terms of, hey, Yankees, Mariners, they have the same record, right? You need to have head-to-head, so at the end of the day, you are in a position where you can have home field. You need to inspire and understand that you can go out and beat the Seattle Mariners. When you see what Max Fried was able to do, I can't get enough. The Yankee ERA, the starting staff to start the season, 0.61. 0.61. Second team in the modern era, 3 or fewer runs in their first 5 games. That is maximum overdrive. Shot out of a cannon, baby. I can't get enough. And I want you to consider it again because it kind of gets you going as a Yankee fan. Garrett Cole hasn't thrown a pitch. Garrett Cole might not pitch until May or June. We still haven't seen Cole. We still haven't seen Rodon. And Max Fried is a co-ace. He's an assassin. He's unbelievable. He's a winner. He's a warrior. Look at what he's done as a Yankee. He's tremendous. And this is what we expected when the Yankees signed him, which is why we started the show with Max Fried from his introductory press conference, because he's lived up. He sees the pressure, understands it. He understands what it means to wear the pinstripes. This guy won a World Series in Atlanta. He's everything, and I can't get enough. And then you start taking a look at the rest of the Yankees. You don't always say this about the Yankees. They're fun. The New York Yankees lead the league in fun. Giancarlo Stanton, I'm not naive. He'll get hurt at some point. It's part of the deal, right? He's locked in, 4th player in Yankee history to have multiple hits in each of the team's first 5 games. That's next level when it comes to Big G. How about the fact that, the Mariners are the one team in the American League, maybe baseball, where you'd say, okay, realistically, they've got a better staff 1 through 5 than the Yankees as we speak right now. And to be able to get to Gilbert in the first last night, that felt like a rather gigantic deal. Ben Rice cooking with that double, Stanton with the RBI. That was huge. It's 2-0 before your derriere hits the seat. Then you look at Jazz hands, baby. He's got an RBI. Love what I'm seeing from Grisham in the outfield. Grisham at the dish. How about Belly? Had to bring him back. Give Cashman credit. We certainly did. He had a couple hits. He stole a base. I mean, the Yankees are fun. And look, Aaron Judge on Friday had a homer, and on Saturday had a homer. He's hitting 150, and the Yankees are 4-1. That's phenomenal. Usually, and Yankee fans know this, the Yankees, if Judge isn't hitting, you're dead on arrival, which speaks to the depth and the talent and the pitching and the fun quotient of this baseball team. And today is a Schlittler day. And listen, I'm obsessed with Max Fried. I can't get enough. If there's one guy I want to pay to watch, it's Cam. Cam I am. I can't get enough of watching him pitch. And it's not even like it's a young guy and you're like, oh, I hope he's able to pitch in a big spot. Remember what he did last year in the playoffs. It was unbelievable. This entire rotation is terrific. I mean, even someone like Will Warren, I mean, you think you're going to eventually kick him out. He keeps pitching and pitching well. You still have Hill in the minors ready to come up. Obviously, you take a look at Weathers, who, I'm obsessed with, had the 7 strikeouts, only loss of the season for the Yankees. So I'm just obsessed. And again, today is a, rubber game of a series later this afternoon in a couple of hours. And, it's going to be Kirby. George Kirby is an excellent pitcher, grew up in Rye, New York. He's terrific, going up against Cam Schlittler. But you feel like the Yankees will win, right? Momentum in baseball. Next day starting pitcher. Yankees right now, they're fired up. They're playing great. They're smart on the bases. They're not making boneheaded decisions, which is something you've seen from Aaron Boone teams and through the years. I just can't get enough of the record, but it's more than that, right? It's looking into the crystal ball and understanding this is going to be a special season. Like when we took a breath and picked the Yankees when the season started on Schein Time to ultimately go to the World Series, this is not me being a Yankee fan. If anything, I'm even more critical of the Yankees because I love the New York Yankees. The way they have started this season, it's exactly what you want. It's been even beyond my wildest expectations. I can't get enough. And I know every Yankee fan who's watching right now is obsessed like I am. And Max Fried, go back to that first press conference. This guy who was born in L.A., pitched for the Braves, now with the Yankees, he's built for this. He might be, when Cole comes back, the third most talented pitcher in the rotation. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's just amazing to flash back to this moment, watch last year, which to me was actually even underrated when you look at last season in the regular campaign with no Garrett Cole, and then to see what he's doing in the first 2 starts this year, it's incredible. I can't get enough. And remember, Rodon's going to come back at some point too. So the 2026 Yankees, the fact that they're 4-1, but even most especially how they've gotten to 4-1, honestly, I just can't get enough. To the Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani showed off again exactly what he's able to do on a baseball diamond. And he spoke after the game on what he needs to improve on.
Last year I felt good, but this year I do feel a lot more loose and easy pitching overall. And, looking back at today's outing specifically, that wasn't necessarily the case, so that's something I want to work on. But compared to last season, I do feel a lot loose and easy.
Bag it, Babe Ruth. I don't ever want to hear Shohei Ohtani and Babe Ruth in the same sentence ever again. It is an insult to Shohei Ohtani. Watching Shohei Ohtani pitch for the first time in 2026 last night against Cleveland, if you're a Dodger fan, you'll love it. If you're a sports fan, a baseball fan, and I know that you are, honestly, this is why you love sports. You are seeing things on the diamond that you have never seen before. They've never been done in the history of the game. When you look at Shohei Ohtani, 6 innings pitched last night, the fact that he was able to throw 87 pitches, 1 hit, all 6 strikeouts on just incredible looking breaking pitches that were just, breaking knees and ankles, and his command and his stuff was incredible last night. It's unreal. Then you factor in, he was able to get on base as a batter 3 times. Babe Ruth didn't do this. He never did this. And I'm not sitting here. I didn't wake up this morning and say, how could I, slander, the Bambino? That's not my point. The point is, Ohtani is light years better than Babe Ruth. I mean, the California Post absolutely nailed it as always on the back page. I mean, this is why this is the hottest ticket in town. And think about the fact that Shohei Ohtani, I want you to just really, at the end of the day, appreciate this. He has the longest active streak right now for scoreless innings. Scoreless innings. He has right now the longest streak for consecutive games getting on base. I want you to stare at the screen for a second. Just stare at this. The longest on-base streak, 36 games, getting on base as a batter. The longest streak right now in baseball, regular season, of scoreless innings as a pitcher. This is not normal behavior. This is not just a run-of-the-mill, oh, he's fantastic. He's a unicorn. He's the best baseball player who's ever played. He's on the handful of athletes in terms of the greatest athletes in the history of North American professional sports. I mean, there is no other comparison. And here's the deal. I never want you to take this for granted. Like every single time Shohei Ohtani does something like this, we need to focus on it. We need to stress it. We need to yell about it. We need to put up graphics to hit it home, because the numbers and the first time this, first time that, it's like something we've literally, because it's true, never, ever seen before. Never seen before. I'm honestly obsessed. And I think that when you look at what Ohtani brings to the table, it's unicorn material. And look, it's not out of the realm of possibility here. We've already seen, MVPs in the regular season. We've obviously seen, when it's all said and done, a 50-50 season. He couldn't pitch 1 year, so he's bored. I'll steal 50 bases. I want you to consider this for a second. And this was something that Jeff Passan from ESPN gave me on my SiriusXM radio show a couple of weeks ago. And he said, Adam, I'm just throwing this out to you, and I want you to tell me what you think. Shohei Ohtani, Cy Young. Like, why not? And can you imagine if somehow Shohei Ohtani won the Cy Young? Like, that doesn't even translate. And for the sake of conversation and fairness, and Yamamoto pitches tonight, he's not even the best starter on his own team. But I never want this, and I'm never going to let this be ordinary. This is next level unicorn freak material. 6 dominant shutout innings last night as a pitcher. 87 pitches, 6 strikeouts, and he got on base 3 times in the same game. And this is another example of why, to me, Dodgers are winning 120. Dodgers are absolute must-see TV. Dodgers are unbelievable in everything. And anyone who says the Dodgers have ruined baseball, you're lying and you're not paying attention. Staying with Los Angeles, but on to the NBA, where it was another night and another superstar being asked to make his MVP case. Here's Luka.
Wemby obviously recently stated his case for why he should win. Is that something you're interested in doing as well? And if so, what would your points be?
I mean, I never did that, so I'm not the one voting, so, but I think I've been playing pretty good. We've been winning, so that's it. That's all I got to say.
Oh, baby. Normally, if there's an L, it's not a good thing, but I love the lower third here. L is for Luka and LeBron and Lakers and Love Fest. And, baby. I mean, this is it. I can't get enough. And if you're a fan of basketball, if you're a fan of the Lakers, listen, this is why you love sports. Yeah, and this Love Fest, to me, you can't slow it down. First of all, you look at Luka Doncic and what was ultimately able to transpire last night. Last night was the 16th game this year, 40 or more. 16 games, 40-plus points. You look at DeAndre Ayton, he was terrific. You look at LeBron, he was strong. How about LeBron James? Moving past Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the most amount of wins, regular season and postseason combined in a career. And LeBron is the second best player in basketball history, NBA history. Jordan's the first. People are like, oh, LeBron, he's Jordan. He's not Jordan. But when I call him number 2 and I put him ahead of Kareem and put him ahead of Wilt and Bill Russell, I mean that as the ultimate compliment for LeBron James. And the way James has become a role player this year for the Lakers, give him credits, give J.J. Redick credits, give Luka credits. And I'll bring it all full circle here. When you watch Doncic play, it's amazing. And it's his team. And that's why he's the MVP. because, and I live for SGA and I always defend them, and I love Victor Wembanyama, obviously, but this Laker team went from punchline to we're going to punch you in the face when this became Luka Doncic's basketball team. When LeBron was hurt, Doncic became the alpha dog. LeBron, to his credit, has done a nice job fitting in. Austin Reeves understands who he is, and he scores the rock. And Rory Hachimura has been great. And they play defense now. I'm not going to turn them into the bad boy Pistons team on defense. But what I am going to do is say, you know what? And obviously, you saw the end of the show yesterday. Our best bet, we bet it, we hit the Lakers smothering Cleveland. That was a lock because of the trust that I have in Luka Doncic and in J.J. Redick and in the defense. Donovan Mitchell last night was awful. He had 10 points because if Donovan Mitchell would have lit him up, all the haters would be like, oh, I can't take the Lakers seriously. You better take the Lakers seriously. And if you're a hater, you're kind of running out of ways here to defend your take. Let me tell you something about your take. It sucks, and it's wrong. The LA Lakers deserve and command respect. If you want to tell me that you expect OKC to win a championship, I'm with you. They're still my pick. But if you're ranking teams that could win the entire thing, the Lakers are in the top 3, and they might be number 2. And I'd make the case, especially the way Ayton's playing, they could beat San Antonio. Just watch them play. Look at the Western Conference standings. Understand that they were, and I'm acknowledging this, cartoonish and struggling and clownish and didn't play a lick of defense, and it was all about whether or not LeBron was going to come back next year for the vast majority of the year. Then, bam, they caught fire because Luka caught fire, and LeBron figured it out. And as a result, people need to start going to school here on Los Angeles and who they are and what they do. And the season's not over. And we can start talking about MVPs and MVP odds and who's going to win it and who we like and who's a fraud until the cows come home. But when you analyze it at the end of the day, the Lakers, to me, I mean, look at this on the DraftKings odds. Look at this. I mean, I would put $1 right now, you know, some pizza money, you know, a coffee on the Lakers at plus 3,000. I mean, come on. The Cavs and the Knicks and the Pistons have better odds? What is this, amateur hour? That's terrible. Absolutely dreadful. Hot garbage. The Lakers in Vegas, court of public opinion, demand and deserve more respect. Or maybe, this is better for LA, where, you know, you have the media elite not paying attention, the Twitter tough guys not paying attention. You know, they don't like when, you know, Luka gets, you know, teed up or flops or complains to the refs. Listen, whatever. I'm obsessed. I'm impressed. I think the Lakers deserve and demand more from people who are watching and people who understand basketball, and I can't get enough of what I'm seeing here from Luka and LeBron. And that's why we have a Lakers love fest. Meanwhile, the Knicks stink. Just ask Tracy McGrady and Melo, who said this after the loss last night to KD and the Rockets.
The effort isn't there. Bro, we only have 5 more games left. Yeah. It's playoff time. So if we're having this right now, you think we're going into the playoffs ready for a Boston team or a Detroit team or a Raptors team? A Hawks team, like, are y'all ready for that? Yeah. Fill it up? Like, no. Yeah.
I do think they built for the playoffs. I will say that. I've said this all season long. I do believe that the Knicks are built for the playoffs. Now. It's right now, to your point, Mac, the habits that they are, you know, that they are showing us every single time that we watch them. It's not getting better. No. You know, those habits are not getting better.
Melo and T-Mac nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. So I love the Knicks. And I love watching the Knicks. And my son Theo loves watching the Knicks. And we made time, obviously, sit down and watch the game. And it's Knicks and Rockets. And it takes you back to '94. And I hate thinking back to when we should have won a championship and everything that transpired. And once again, it's a slow start. And once again, the Knicks are sloppy. And once again, they don't play a lick of defense. And I am sick and tired of it. Because I believe what Melo believes. In theory, the Knicks are built for the playoffs. I believe that. But there's no tangible evidence that all of a sudden, bam, light switch goes on. You're waiting. You're just waiting. You watch the Knicks play, you almost got to remember, right? And I'll give you this chronological order in the example here. Remember that Sunday when they spanked the Spurs and it was inspiring? Then they won that trap game against Toronto. And then they competed hard and lost really late in the fourth quarter at home against OKC. And then they spanked Denver. But then they started slow and they had terrible losses and they were sloppy with the ball against the Lakers and the Clippers back-to-back games. That sequence changed everything. And those games against the Lakers and the Clippers, there's too much of this. I mean, once again, the Knicks didn't bother to show up. Mikal Bridges was atrocious. OG did nothing. Josh Hart is more interested in going after my guy Stephen A. Smith than he is playing basketball. Jalen Brunson, who I'm obsessed with, can't be the hero every single night. Cat doesn't bring it. There's no defense. There's no ball movement. There's no continuity. They're turning it over left and right. And listen, I didn't make the rules. The Knicks, Leon Rose, who I love, he made the rules. Jim Dolan, he made the rules. This team's got to go to the finals. You fired my guy Tom Thibodeau, and you brought in Mike Brown. I like Mike Brown. And I hated firing Tom Thibodeau. I took a breath. Okay, you want to bring in Mike Brown? I like Mike Brown. But you have to be able to get to the NBA Finals because you fired Tibbs after he finally got the team to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 2 decades. So you fired Tibbs. There were expectations. And the fact play like gutless puke in terms of a plan and effort and execution, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And Tracy McGrady, Carmelo Anthony, nailed it. Nailed it. Look, there's always a shot because the East is weird and weak, right? Like, I refuse to call it a 0% chance. But think about it. You can't feel good about anything. The calendar flipped from March to April today. The playoffs start in 2 weeks. Why am I supposed to believe? This is supposed to be a gap year for the Celtics. You trust the Celtics more. Cade Cunningham has his situation. The Pistons aren't that good. I still don't trust the Knicks. Cleveland's a mess. I mean, Toronto, Atlanta's playing great. This should be the Knicks conference, no doubt about it. Can't say it. Can't guarantee it. That is another pathetic embarrassment against a really good basketball team. The Knicks make me sick. I have some things I need to get off my chest. And let's start with 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan getting some things off his chest with regards to the rival Rams.
I'm pretty sure the Rams lobbied for that game.
What?
For a fact they did. And because so bothersome.
Yeah.
So hopefully the league will do right and let us play the Rams in Mexico since we got to go out of the country twice and they requested us. I'm requesting them in Mexico.
Oh.
Not that gives us an advantage. It's just fair to make them go out of the country.
That would be great to have the two games between the Rams and the 49ers. Neither played
I like it.
I mean,
I knew he might go this way when he brought it up. I knew it. I knew it.
So I was waiting for the right moment. Sorry.
So, just so people understand, that's Kyle Shanahan, Niners coach, calling out the Rams. And clearly he thinks, and he's accusing them of this, that the Rams said, yeah, we'll play the Niners and give up a home game, and we'll play in Australia week 1 of the NFL season, and we'll give up the game and do what's right for the league and be good soldiers because the Rams, as according to Shanahan, they don't want to play the Niners at SoFi because the incredible Niners fans, bang, bang, Niner gang, they travel from San Francisco to L.A. That becomes a pseudo 49er home game in Los Angeles, and you have we've seen this 30 years, right? You have Matthew Stafford and the Rams. They need a silent count at home. So Shanahan is pissed, and I get it. Right now, they have to travel an unprecedented 38,000 miles in 2026. They have two international games. They have the Mexico City game. So he wants the Rams to play them in Mexico City to make it an even playing field. I mean, my goodness. And by the way, and I love the Rams. I think they're the best organization in the NFL. They're sensational. I mean, I understand Shanahan's point. And by the way, McVay and Shanahan, best friends, can't be best friends anymore because of the heated rivalry in the division. I think these teams are going to be outstanding again. It's great for the NFL and sports to have this kind of good old-fashioned hate. So I love it. I can't get enough. And as much as I love the Rams, Shanahan is 100% right here on his rants. Look, Tiger Woods needs to focus on himself. And I remember last week, before everything happened with his car and, with the accidents, that, we were talking about Tiger in the TGL and Tiger getting ready for Augusta, and that gets me excited. Everybody else is fired up about it. This is not about golf. And honestly, I honestly think it's irresponsible of someone like me or anyone else to talk about, hey, maybe there's a shot, he'll play in the Masters. Tiger Woods has serious problems. And I wanted to see him play more than anything else. This is about him. This is about his health. This is about his safety. This is about the safety of others on the road, his family, his friends. This is barely a sports story. So I appreciate what Tiger puts on social media, his statements. I appreciate the response from the PGA Tour. This is no longer about golf. We're not going to discuss whether or not he's going to play at the Masters. I need him to get right as a human, and then at some point, hopefully, we could talk about golf. C.B. Buckner. Why is he always a topic for conversation? C.B. Buckner. How about can't believe? I can't believe my eyes. C.B. Buckner, are you kidding me? Amateur hour. He's the worst umpire in baseball, right? Everybody knows that. He has completely botched everything in terms of balls and strikes and, the ABS and everything. Last night in the Brewers game, it was absolutely the theater of the absurd. He said that Jake Bauers didn't touch first base when it was crystal clear that he did. It's also crystal clear, if you saw it on social media or you watched it behind me, C.B. Buckner's not even looking at the play. Not only is it obvious that Bauers touched first, he's not even looking. This is like Costanza running and taking the trophy and the back of his car and driving it around trying to get fired. I think C.B. Buckner hates being an umpire. I think he wants baseball to fire him. This is the only logical explanation. How else could you say the runner didn't touch first? It's a disgrace. C.B. Buckner needs to go. Now. I don't want to see him ever again. There is officially an issue with Jalen Hurts with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I want to give my friend Chris Sims a lot of credit. He was the first one who really slammed this home last year when he talked to people in Philadelphia and he talked to different people in that organization. Jalen Hurts was kind of ad-libbing and, not being a great representative of the coaching staff when he was out on the field. And, everyone could blame the offensive coordinator. But the Philadelphia Eagles, in Chris Sims' mind, had a Jalen Hurts problem. Now, Hurts has obviously won a Super Bowl. He's been tough and clutch. He'll always have that. Jalen Hurts last year was awful. Absolutely awful. And when you read those quotes from Jeremy Fowler's incredible piece on ESPN, if you're an Eagle fan, this is nightmare fuel. Poor body language, not always bought in, not coachable. And again, the Philadelphia Inquirer has written about this. Chris Sims has talked about this. And you wondered aloud why no one wanted that job, to be the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. They have talents. Howie Roseman's a gem, right? Brian Daboll, and rightly so, picked the Titans. Mike McDaniel picked the Chargers. Nobody wanted to coach this offense. It's going to be Sean Mannion now calling the plays. Sean Mannion was back up in the league just a hot second ago. He has no experience calling plays. So I think it's important to stress here, Jalen Hurts deserves this heat. This is part of the reason why, and it's beyond repair, A.J. Brown wants out. Why they couldn't, at the end of the day, find anyone who was experienced, who wanted to coach the offense. And this is a mess. Look, I have the take, and we'll never know, even though I kind of know, and we'll never find out. Before the Micah Parsons deal, I was picking Dallas to win the division. And then you saw what transpired, and, that ruined everything for the Cowboys. We'll see what happens with George Pickens. We'll see what happens with the Giants. I don't love the Eagles this year. I just don't. I don't love the offensive coordinator situation. I don't love what's going on with Jalen Hurts. I don't love the drama and nonsense with A.J. Brown, who I believe will be traded. There's something off. I'm not a big Nick Sirianni fan, and it's a golden opportunity for the Cowboys and for the New York Football Giants to find a way to ultimately make the playoffs and or win that division. How about the Final Four? I can't wait for the Final Four. And everyone keeps saying that when you look at it, the Michigan and Arizona game, that's like the NFC title game. When you take a look at everything going on with regards to how the NFC Championship last year, it was a guarantee that at the end of the day, you were going to see the winner of the Seahawks and the Rams have the ability to win the Super Bowl, and that was correct. I don't feel that way about Michigan and Arizona. Look, Illinois is a terrific team, and you know the love and respect that I have for Dan Hurley and UConn. This is Dan Hurley's time to shine. I think Dan Hurley is a gem, 17-1. When you look at the last 4 years in the NCAA tournament, Michigan or Arizona might end up winning the title. I'm not saying that's not going to be the case. They will be favored in Vegas for a reason. But if you're automatically suggesting at the end of the day that whoever wins that game, just, congratulations, cut down the nets, I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. Our next guest has a vesting interest in the Final Four, and that gives us another excuse to roll the greatest ending to an NCAA tournament game one more time.
Back to Sarr, now ahead to Caden Boozer, and a steal! Mullins gets it! It's Caravan to Mullins, long-range three! Oh! It went in! Mullins delivers! Bedlam here!
It's the UConn culture. It's the UConn heart. It's what Gino built and Coach Calhoun built and what Kevin Ollie carried on. And, we just believe we're supposed to win this time of year, as I've got the sweat just dripping down. But we were so courageous today, and we just fought so hard.
Joining us right now here on Schein Time, the commissioner of the Big East, Hall of Famer, the great Val Ackerman. Val, how are you?
I'm great, Adam. Thanks for running that. I got chills again watching that shot.
Same. I mean, unbelievable. So, look, you're a fan. You're a basketball lifer. You understand the game more than anyone. Obviously, you also have a vested interest in the Big East. So take us through that final sequence and your reaction.
Well, it's interesting because I was not there in person. I was actually at UConn's game on Friday night of the regionals in D.C., where they beat Michigan State. And then I traveled to Texas to support the UConn women's team in their Elite Eight game on Sunday. Fortunately, the games were not head-to-head, so I was able to watch the women's game, which was a win. They beat Notre Dame to advance to the Final Four. So UConn has two teams in the Final Four, men's and women's. And then I got to the airport, and I was watching that men's game at the gate at DFW, wearing my earbuds, sort of watching it on my phone with my legs sort of on my, roller bag. And, it was an amazing comeback. I mean, I didn't know what to think, and then they started clawing back. And then when he hits the shot, I emoted.
I love it.
I'm yelling in the airport, and these people are looking at me. Of course, that's scary when someone's yelling in an airport. And I pulled out a bud and say, "Sorry, guys, March Madness." And everyone sort of said, "Oh, okay. Now I understand. Now I understand." So it was an incredible moment. And then the text started pouring in from colleagues about the game. And so it was obviously an amazing moment for the Huskies, amazing moment for college basketball, I think, and certainly for the Big East, a crowning moment.
Without question. Now, I want you to kind of slam this home for us. The UConn women, the UConn men, in their respective hoops Final Four. It's just awesome. And look, that right there is enough. But to me, Val, it's even more. The programs, the fans, the coaches are elite. How do you describe what you're seeing from UConn women and UConn men?
Well, I think they've proven beyond the shadow of a doubt, if there was ever doubt, that they are truly the two programs among the all-time elite in college basketball. They've got it all. They've got talent, Success breeds success in both programs, so they continue to be a magnet for the best players in the country. They've got great leadership, top to bottom, tremendous support at the president level, Dr. Radenka Marek, AD David Benedict, who's one of the best in the business. And then, of course, on the sidelines, you've got a Hall of Famer and a future Hall of Famer. And Coach Oriema, who's in the hall, both halls, men's and women's basketball. And then Coach Hurley, who's on track to join him in the Naismith Hall. So, and then the grit factor, I think Coach Hurley said it in that interview you ran. They just, they're just built to win there. And they think they're going to win. And attitude and confidence is such a big deal, particularly at this stage of the season where every single game is hard. I've seen a lot of these games. Every game is hard. It's matchup dependent. There's so much pressure on these young athletes. But they just sort of have it in their minds that they're supposed to win these games. So when you put all of that together, you have what you have. And they call themselves the basketball capital of the world up in Stores. And I, sometimes you go, okay, sure. But I think this time you go, okay, right.
Yeah, they certainly have that right now, no question about it. Can't even argue against it. Not that I want to, for the record. How about St. John's, Val? And look, this was a terrific run. And I'm curious from your perspective, how important is it to the buzz and the prestige of the Big East to have St. John's both relevant and dominant?
We want all of our schools to do well, Adam. I have to start with that. So, if any of them are in the big dance or advancing, we're living vicariously, happily with that. But I will say with St. John's, particularly because, they're in New York City, there is something a little bit different about their success. And I've borne witness to it over the last 13 years since I've had this role, because they did have a drought for a while. And, Coach Pitino comes back with high expectations, and he's delivered. And I've seen for myself what it's done to energize their fan base, what it's done to energize basketball fans in New York City, what it's done to energize the New York City sports writers, particularly the New York Post, where they're back cover fodder.
Yeah.
Every time they win, thanks to Zach Braziller and others, Mike Vaccaro and others. And so it really, it does matter. And in the Garden, which is such an amazing building, they've, kind of proven that they own it in the last year or two. And that's very electrifying for their home games, as well as the Big East tournament at MSG, which just completed its 44th edition a few weeks ago. So I think for them, for the conference, for New York City, and for college basketball, the Johnnies doing well, it's a winning combination.
Absolutely. I agree with every word you just said. And I'm curious to get your take on this. I was so angry and outspoken on St. John's as a 5 seed. I thought, and Coach Pitino, when he joined us on our show before the Big East tournament, thought if they won it, and they did, 4 easily, and frankly, based upon other results and resume and how they beat UConn, I thought a 3 was in play as well. And Val, that mattered for St. John's. Mattered in terms of matchup, mattered in terms of who they played in the Sweet 16. Do you think, because I did, St. John's and the Big East got treated unfairly by the committee?
We would have liked a higher seed in a different region so that they and UConn weren't paired in the same region. I mean, they would have had to meet in the regional final for, us to sort of be on sort of who do we root for here. That didn't happen, of course, with the St. John's loss to Duke in the Sweet 16 game. I will say, yeah, we were disappointed. Absolutely, Adam. I will say, we have a representative on the selection committee. We got a very detailed explanation after the fact of why St. John's got the 5 seed. What affected them were some early season losses, to be honest, against high majors. And then when you put when you line them up with other schools that were also on the bubble, those other schools did better in the so-called quad 1, quad 2 games. So to the extent that the selection process become more and more metrics driven, their metrics, weren't quite what they could have been or should have been or needed to be. But I do agree with you. I think the fact that they had an amazing run at the end more weight should have been assigned to that. And that's a conversation that we plan to have with the NCAA now that the season's over about, okay, because their attitude is every game's the same. And I don't believe that. I don't believe the early season games, especially when teams are high turnover situations, they're coming together for the first time. St. John's playing in March was not the same team that was playing in November. And so I do think that whole, process needs to be reexamined.
I'm curious to get your take, and I agree with every word you just said. I'm curious to get your take on this, and I've asked Coach Pitino this, I've asked Coach Hurley this. How would you characterize Big East men's basketball this past season?
Hard fought, same as it always is. Games are almost a toss-up, particularly because our bottom got lifted. We ended up the season with all of our teams in the top 101 in the NCAA evaluation tool, aka net metric, which is one of the primary tools that the NCAA selection committee uses to select the at-large teams. And that hasn't always been the case. So our bottom came up in a meaningful way. Our middle wasn't quite as strong as it needed to be to get more than the 3 bids that we got. And so that's going to be an area of scrutiny, I know, after the season. We were thrilled that Villanova was back in the mix with a tournament bid. Obviously, UConn and St. John's did us proud. We had Seton Hall this close. But some, games that they could have won or should have won that didn't, where that didn't happen, sort of turned the tide there. And we had Butler and Creighton in the mix really for a while until things started to turn for both of them till the end. There was a point where I thought we might get 6 teams in, which would have been, fabulous. So, that's the way the chips fell this year. Doesn't mean that the Big East won't be back next year. We will. Our schools are, leaning in hard to the new operating environment, which is very different from the one that existed just a few years ago in terms of athlete acquisition, roster retention, et cetera. And so we, feel still very confident with all of the elements that we have to be successful, that we will remain successful. Hopefully we can get a national champion out of it this year. That would certainly make up for not having as many teams as we wanted in the big dance.
Without question. Now, I'm curious, what was it like being part of President Trump's College Sports Roundtable? Give us some takeaways. And, do we need, when it comes to college sports in general, congressional intervention?
I believe we do. And that, to me, was the positive of the meeting, was that the executive branch and key members of the legislative branch who were in attendance were dialed in and really, seem eager to try to restore some stability and order to an operating environment, which is anything but at the moment, particularly at the highest levels of college sports. Once you get past high-level football, high-level basketball, things calm down, and college sports is a lot like it used to be. For example, when I played, I'm not saying it's the same, but in terms of the focus on academics, transfer rates not as high, the compensation equation not what it is in football and basketball. And so sort of a lot of what college sports needs to be is still there for most athletes, but at the high levels, it's really, really changed. And so many of us do believe that the only solution is for Congress to intervene and reconcile all of these federal laws that are bumping up against each other. And, at these levels, we've got antitrust issues, we've got federal labor and employment law issues. There will be Title IX questions that'll come into play at some point. There's going to be tax law questions. And so only Congress really can pull all that together and come up with some protections that would protect the athletes, by the way, not just the schools, but would create, again, the stability that many of us believe is lacking right now, and get us back into a framework that we think is going to work and be sustainable.
I love Big East basketball. I do have, with the landscape, a little bit of a concern in general for Big East and other conferences that, frankly, don't have a lot of football schools. Is there a concern from your seats about NIL for non-football schools and programs?
We've done very well in that area in the Big East. And frankly, one advantage we have is that we don't have football expenses at our league. I mean, the schools that are bringing in the big dollars are sending a lot of that back out to the sport of football, because football is a very expensive sport. You got operating costs, you got coaching compensation levels that are sky high. And then, of course, you've got large rosters where, certain compensation levels are needed to acquire and retain the players. We don't have that in the Big East. We don't have their revenue, though. To your point, Adam, we'd love their revenue, but we don't have their expenses. And so that does mean that we can sort of, lean in hard to basketball and the expenses that we need to maintain high levels of basketball success. Where all this is in a few years, I don't know the answer. I mean, there's no crystal ball here about how these spending levels will play out over time, and who the winners will be in this new landscape. It may be that the team that spends the most wins the most, or it may be that that doesn't matter. You need to spend wisely as much as you need to spend. So time will tell, and I think our schools are, trying to adapt quickly because they have no choice. If they want to, be in it, they got to adapt, and they're trying to do that.
Val, last one for you. You were the first president of the WNBA, and the latest CBA just feels like a monster win for everyone. What was your take on the CBA, and how satisfying is it for you to see the growth of the WNBA from when it first started?
Well, the answer to the last question is very. I mean, just a lot of things go through my head. I mean, for example, the return of the Houston Comets,
yeah.
Whoa. I mean, that was my life for the first 4 years. They were the first champion of the WNBA, and then again the next 3 years after that. So that's, talk about what's old. What's old is new again. That's the adage.
That's right.
What's old is new again. But certainly, to see the league thriving now 30 years in, when we set out on this path, David Stern and Russ Granick and Rick Welts, Adam Silver and I and many others, we knew it was going to be a marathon, not a sprint. The NBA took decades to become the NBA that we know today.
Yeah.
So we, figured it was going to be the same for women's basketball. But I think now that the league has sold itself, the players are great. Society has helped because people, I think, are more accepting, Adam, of women athletes in team sports than they were, certainly when I played basketball at Virginia and when the WNBA launched. I think all these things have sort of come together in a really great way. So for somebody like me, I'm just cheering hard. May the best team win. They've got a lot of great teams now. Expansion is on the horizon. They've got a good TV deal. So, and I'm glad that the WNBA remains the beacon for women's team sports because, it's doing a lot of things right now.
Absolutely. Very well said. Val, loved every second of this. Really appreciate the time. Congrats on everything, and we'll do it again real soon.
Thanks, Adam.
Let's finish strong. My goodness. I mean, finally, the Rangers and the Devils make Schein Time. Little goalie fisticuffs. By the way, that is the third goalie fights of the year in the NHL. I love goalie fights because they're crazy and they're chaotic and they make absolutely no sense. And that'll do it for our coverage of the New Jersey Devils here on Schein Time. What are we betting tonight? How about the Padres? Let's go with the Padres as they take care of business tonight with Pivetta on the mound. Padres over the Giants, -142. We will be locked into that puppy, obviously, tonight. That right there, that is a show. If you missed any second of it, of course, you can watch Schein Time on the New York Post Sports YouTube or the California Post Sports YouTube anytime. Anytime you want. I mean, do what I do. Go back and watch it multiple times because no one loves me more than me. We'll see you tomorrow. Schein Time. New York Post, California Post.